fact, when I first started Titanic, I wanted all my main characters to survive at the end. And then I thought to myself, is that reasonable?
No.
Not really.
No.
Not a disaster where 2/3 of the people don't make it. And you know what? If I'm so married to the idea of a happy ending, why did I choose the Titanic as my title in the first place? I mean, it isn't a happy ending. When I was writing it, though, I kept thinking over and over again about the phrase, we're all in the same boat. Just because Titanic was so huge, it may as well have been 6 boats. And depending on where you were, like what class you were in, you had a totally different experience when it went down. I mean, the Titanic sank head first, right? So the last part above water was the stern, right? The back. So picture this. Hundreds of people are just sort of streaming towards the stern. You got to sort of file that under, it seemed like a good idea at the time, because the problem was before the ship sank, it actually tipped up to vertical. So a lot of those people, they actually didn't die of drowning or hypothermia. They kind of fell. Like the Titanic stood up on end like that is actually about the same size as the Eiffel Tower.
Wow.
I mean, can you imagine falling off of that? But a handful of them made it all the way. Right? And what they did, you kind of got to picture it, okay? The ship is tilted up. The deck is vertical, right? The stern rail, the back rail, is horizontal. And if you were close enough to get your hand on that stern rail, you could sort of hoist yourself up and over. So a handful of people were actually able to walk out, totally standing up straight, onto the outside of the ship, right there on the actual stern plates of the building of the Titanic. And when the ship sank, they just sort of rode it down, almost like it was an elevator, right? One guy, real survivor, this is what he wrote in his journal. He timed it perfectly. Just before the stern went under, he stepped off. He had a life jacket, he's got flotation. He didn't even get his hair wet. And that guy actually survived in the water longer than anybody else in the whole Titanic disaster, probably because when he first went in, he was never completely submerged, right? Now, if you were further forward, you had a completely different experience. They loaded the lifeboats from the top deck. The problem was they didn't have enough, right? So all these people were just stranded there, and all they could do was kind of wait for the water to get higher and higher and eventually sweep them off the deck. Now, at the base of the first smokestack, right, Titanic had 4, there was this ginormous ventilator shaft. So the water starts pouring into the ship through that with such incredible force that all these people were driven underwater and smashed up against the grating, right? They're trying to swim back up again. They can't, right? Tens of thousands of gallons per second are pouring into the ship. They're just pinned there. Okay? At that moment, every single one of those people was about to drown. You know what happened? At that very instant, deep within the Titanic, one of the boilers, like the big furnaces, explodes. And it creates this huge cloud of steam that shoots up through the ship, blasts these guys up off the grating, propels them like torpedoes all the way up to the surface, and a bunch of them made it onto lifeboats and survived. I don't care how good your imagination is, like nobody is going to make that up, Like there are some things that can only come from kind of researching your topic. And Titanic was one of those things, just because not only did you have to research the ship and the sinking, but you also had to research the time, right? I mean, it sank in 1912, and the world was pretty different then. I mean, most of my books take place today. If I want to research today, I just open the window and look outside. If I want to create characters like today's kids, I hang out with you guys, or my own kids. I have an 8th grade son, 5th grade daughter, 2nd grade son. Hang out with them and their friends, see how they act and dress and talk. I mean, I'm a big dialogue guy. I love to tell a lot of my stories in conversation, right? But the conversation has to sound like normal people talk, you know? Even something as simple as, how does a character say hello? Does he say hi? Does he say, yo? Does he say, what's up? Does he say, how you doing? How are you? I went to high school with this kid, okay? Honest. For 4 years, I don't think he used the word hello once. He always used to say, greetings. I mean, I kid you not, exactly like that. The phone rings, hello, brief pause, greetings. Well, none of you guys know my friend, but don't you have a feeling in the back of your mind for just the kind of doofus we're talking about, right, based on one word? Well, if you can get that much personality out of a word, think how much you can get out of dialogue, right? Like, not so much what people say as how they say it, you know. The FBI says no two fingerprints are alike. Well, I think characters have dialogue fingerprints a little bit. Like, not so much what they say as how they say it, you know, the little words and phrases and patterns. It's awesome for all of these books except Titanic, because 100 years ago, nobody talked the way we do. You know, you can't have characters on the Titanic saying things like, dude, the boat's sinking. What's up with that, man? The gin water's mad cold. 100 years ago? No way. Like, there was one moment in the Titanic where the ship was still pretty decently afloat, but it was the moment where the last lifeboat had sailed. So if you're still on the ship, you are like still on the ship. Like, there's no way that you're getting off this thing except straight into the water. And supposedly one guy turned to the man next to him and said, "It would appear that we are in rather a tight corner." Are you kidding me? I mean, you know, you just learned that like in about 45 minutes, you're about to go into the water, you know, on an Eiffel Tower-sized ship. You have like a 99% chance of dying, you know, at a tight corner, you know. But it says everything about 1912, right? They understated everything. We overstate everything. You know, that's the kind of thing that comes from research. I mean, I think everybody does research. We just don't always call it that, you know. My 8th grade son is a big video game kid. And he loves to go on the internet and find cheats for his games. Well, that's research, right? He's using the resources at his fingertips to find the information he needs to do a better job at what he's trying to do. You know, when I do research, I'm just looking for cheats to write a better book. You know, my second series was called Everest. This is what I knew about Mount Everest when I started. It's a mountain, it's big. And everything else was cheats, you know. But I mean, can you imagine how bad those books would have been if that was what I knew about the topic?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Mount Everest isn't just big, it's so high that if you get stranded near the top, you cannot be rescued. Like, impossible, because a rescue helicopter can only go up to a certain altitude. Have you ever heard that the air gets thinner the higher up you go? Well, at a certain point, it becomes so thin that the chopper blade has nothing to push off of, right? That happens at like 20,000 feet. Mount Everest is like nearly 2 miles higher than that. Yeah, 29,000 feet. So if you get stuck up there, you're done. You know, if you can't get yourself down, and your climbing partners can't get you down, you're not getting down, you know. I mean, it's not all research. You know, sometimes just great stuff happens that you have to write about. One of my favorite stories of where an idea came from, I was doing a school visit in Michigan, and as they were giving me my tour of the school, I glanced in the science room. I think it caught my attention because the floor was covered in straw. But when I looked again, there was like a live chicken in their science room. So I turned to the principal and said, the obvious question, what's up with the chicken? And he explained that they're doing a project where they take a baby chick just hatched from an egg and they raise it in class. It actually only takes, believe it or not, 4 months for a chicken to go from unhatched egg to adult hen. And then the plan was, when this chicken was fully grown, they were going to kill it, cook it, and eat it. Now, I'm not saying the teacher whips out an axe one day and starts chasing the chicken around the lab. But, guys, they were 100% serious, When this chicken was fully grown, they were going to